Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 2 for both EDSS379 and EDSS223. So I'm doing a combined weekly overview video because the focus for this week is exactly the same. We are looking at inquiry learning. So this week, as I've said many times before, is very, very important for this unit and your learning in the HISI-HAS subject areas. So last week, we introduced you to the humanities and social sciences. We had a lot of great discussions in the tutorials, and some of you have been providing some really great responses on the discussion boards about what our subjects are really all about. There were so many fantastic ideas. We discussed what some of the key areas of teaching in these subjects are all about. We focused on the three-dimensional model, and we talked a lot about the main ideas that underpin history and geography. It was very apparent that some of you don't like history and/or geography, and some of you quite like these subjects. And as I've said before, we all can't love every single subject that we have to teach, especially in primary school where there are such a range of subjects that we have to teach. We all have our specialties and our areas of interest, and that's great. That's what makes us all different. But I am hoping that in this first week, I've been able to, in some way, through the tutorials, through the lectures, really try to impart the message that you may not like the topics that you have to teach. You may not be interested in the first fleet. You may not be interested in the focus of geography, the connection between people and places, or, perhaps even in history, you're not really just interested in anything about the past and don't really see the relevance in it. Be rest assured that the main takeaway of this unit is that you are teaching a lot more than these facts and ideas in your subjects, in the history and geography subjects. What you're teaching students, and this is what you really need to focus on, are the skills. So as you dive into that history syllabus for these first 4 weeks, you really need to focus on that continuum table. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, please go back into the history syllabus video that I've posted in both units up in that top section and have a look through that video where I walk you through what that continuum table is all about. In both units, we will be focusing on history skills because these are really, really important. And I think, if anything, when you finish this unit, when you are asked, what is the importance of history? Your answer may have changed from the beginning of the unit. You may now say that the skills that you teach to students are going to be the ones that they take away from their study in history. It's not necessarily going to be about past events and how we can change the future, although that might be part of it. You may have more of a focus on the skills and what those skills are. So when we look into that history syllabus, really take note of what those are. And in the first assignment, you will be required to do just that. So as I said, some really great ideas coming through on what the humanities and social sciences are all about, the HISI-HAS subjects. So this week, we are moving into inquiry learning. As I said, a very important week, the most important week. The readings are a little bit less. For both units, they're exactly the same, which is why I'm doing a combined video. So this is the one for 379, exactly the same as 223. So you're looking at that Porter and Fussell reading, which is in the textbook. And also in the reading list, there's another reading by Reynolds. And if you have the recommended text, or you can choose to get the chapter from the library, you can look at Planning for Critical Inquiry. So this week, make sure you get through those readings. We will also be talking about the different stages, and I want you to pay particular focus as you're reading the chapter on the different stages of the inquiry model, because in this unit, in both units, you will be creating a sequence of learning that involves each of these different stages. So you need to be quite familiar with how to differentiate between the different stages. And I'll talk more about that as we move through the unit, and also when we come to that assignment, which is much further on. Let's worry about assignment 1 right now. But pay particular attention to what the different stages are all about, because there's different types of teaching involved in each of those different stages. So the types of activities that you do with students to activate prior knowledge is a different type of activity from those that you do in a type of analytical activity. It's quite different. And that's really the point here. We're teaching you different styles of teaching that is really based on that guided discovery that you want to focus on with your students. So that's the focus of this week, is inquiry learning, guided discovery. And so really focus on that when you're doing your reading. Again, you can watch the lecture with polls or without polls. It's completely up to you. I noticed that students are choosing one or the other, so that's good that you have that option. Some may not really be interested. They just want to listen to what the lecture is all about and not really contribute, and others are interested. So that's good to have that diversity and that option for both groups. Now, pay particular attention as well in the lecture to this model here, which is also in the Porter and Fussell reading for this week. This is what I really want to focus on, this model, what this looks like in the classroom. What does this look like for early stage 1 students? What does this look like for a year 6 class? Okay, again, when we're talking about skills, and we obviously will be, never assume competence. Big mistake I made is assuming competence, and my lesson completely fell apart. So that's why I'm imparting to you, because I was never told that. I just learned on the job sort of thing. So I'm letting you know now, if you don't know already, that from being in the classroom, that we shouldn't assume the competence of our students. So we're going to go through each of these different stages at some point, not this week, but I did want to bring your attention to this model, because I want you to really start thinking about having this model in the back of your mind, because as we go through this unit, every time we talk about a learning activity, you're going to need to be thinking about the types of skills students need to have in order to complete that activity. Every time you do a learning activity, there will be some type of skill that students need to have in order to complete it. And every student will be at a different sort of level of understanding how to complete the activity with that skill. Also, as I mentioned before, in the history syllabus, there is the continuum table, which lists specific skills that students need to be able to do through their learning in history. For example, analysis of sources, and that's the one that comes to mind because I had the most difficulty teaching it. So I always remember that one first, research and so forth. And you will need to be thinking about these in your first assignment. So that's all I want to say about inquiry learning, where we've come from last week, where we're headed this week. And as I've said before, this is a combined weekly overview video. And the reason for that is because the first 4 weeks in both units are exactly the same for both groups. Once we hit week 5, both groups will go off on different paths. 379 will be focusing on geography, and 223 will continue on focusing on history. Now, a couple of things to also remember this week. There is a quiz for both groups to complete, not marked, but you can kind of test your understanding of what inquiry learning is all about. Not a bad idea to probably do it straight at the beginning of the week and see how you go. Maybe you get 1 out of 10, that's okay. Do it again at the end after you've done all your readings and completed some activities that you are asked to complete, and see maybe you'll get 10 out of 10. And that can build your confidence and think, wow, I'm doing a great job at learning in this unit. So please feel free. I noticed that quite a few students have participated in the quiz for last week, so that's great. And if you haven't already, you can still go back. That'll be open for the rest of the unit. So another thing that I just wanted to mention that we talked a lot about in the tutorials, on campus tutorials, and also on the, I believe the discussion boards, we were also talking about this, or in the polls, at least in the lectures. We were talking about this 3-dimensional model, and it brought up a lot of interesting points. A lot of students had some great ideas about, when interrogated about, the cross-curriculum priorities, their relevance to the curriculum, their relevance to the lives of our students, and also the general capabilities, remembering that ICT is now changed to digital literacy. I drew your attention to the topic notes, where I really break down what both the cross-curriculum priorities are all about and the general capabilities. It was quite interesting to engage in the discussions about this 3-dimensional model. We had some great discussion points, and I stated in the tutorials that One of the reasons why I start both units with this three-dimensional model is because it's really important to understand the driving force of the curriculum. And we know that there are reasons why we have what we have in the curriculum to teach. There are political reasons why we have certain topics and so forth. We know that in history, there's a lot that's left out. Why is that? And these sorts of questions were coming up in the tutorials. And it was really interesting to consider, the motivations behind what these cross-curriculum priorities are, and even the general capabilities. And also why some general capabilities may or may not be more important than others. So a lot of discussion points there. So as I mentioned before, making sure that you download the history syllabus, the New South Wales syllabus, because you'll need to be familiar with it for the first assignment. I do mention in the first assignment overview video that all students will be required to use the New South Wales syllabus for certain sections of the assignment. So the sections where you have to actually extract curriculum and put it into the assignment, you will be using the syllabus. But I do talk about it in the video and the reasons for this. So making sure that you download it. But if you are not in New South Wales, also very important to have a look at your curriculum documents to become familiar with that. That is extremely important. I'm not discounting that. In addition to the topic notes that are in each of the sections for both units, the quiz that you can complete on Inquiry Learning, the lecture notes or the PowerPoint notes, and also the discussion board, you will notice that there's a folder called scopes and sequences. So I'll just bring up one unit here to show you. So sample, scopes, and sequences and units. So the reason why I put that in is to give you an idea to start thinking about how these units translate into units from the syllabus into what we actually teach in the classroom. So if we think about this unit of work here, the Australian colonies for stage 3, we can actually download from here. We click on this. Again, this is in both units. The stage 3 scope and sequence and the unit. You can actually see what that looks like and how it's translated. So I'll just show you here quickly. So for example, the Australian colonies, you can see what the unit description is and what outcomes are addressed, which you'll know if you look in the syllabus, you can see quite clearly at the top of each unit what outcomes are needing to be addressed in that unit of work. And you can see what the focus is and for how many weeks students spend on those questions, okay, and key inquiry questions. Now, the other thing that you can see is also a unit of work. So this is the Australian colonies. You can see how important the skills are, because in this unit of work, which is just an example of what a unit of work might look like, that when you go into a school, that all schools do it differently, but the good units of work that I've received from schools when I've gone into different schools have the skills and the concepts listed, the historical skills and concepts. And that's what's here too. So you know exactly what skills need to be addressed in the unit of work and what concepts. And it's really broken down into the different content areas from the syllabus. And I've seen it presented different ways. Again, this is just an example, but a really good unit of work will give you, from a school, will give you different resources that you can use. And I've seen units of work that have much more than this. So, and some learning activities that you can use. So these are just some examples that you can have a look at in the section for this week. So download those, become familiar with the syllabus. It's really time to start doing that as we prepare for the first assignment. All right, so one other thing that I wanted to say, which I actually forgot to mention in the assignment videos that I prepared for the first assignment, is about how to reference the syllabus. It's really actually quite confusing, and you'll see it referenced differently all over the Moodle site. And there's a reason for this. So if you have the physical copy, which I know many of you probably don't, you might have just downloaded the New South Wales syllabus directly from the website, which is fine. If you've downloaded the document online, then you use NESA. And the thing is that the New South Wales syllabus was actually created in 2012, but there have been some updates since. So you may see 2012 written in this unit, but you can use the most recent, which I believe is 2020 for the history K-10. If you are using the physical copy, so you actually have the K-6 copy, because they don't print the K-10, they actually only print the K-6, and then they print a 7-10, then it's called New South Wales BOSS. So, and the page numbers may be a little bit different. So if you see New South Wales BOSS, that just means that that reference probably came from the actual physical copy that I have. Now, in terms of the geography, which I know only applies to 379, in 2015, it actually changed to BOSTES, so BOSTES, when the geography syllabus was written. But again, if you're using the online one, then it's NESA. So it can be really confusing. Just use either, if you're using the online version, just write NESA. Okay, if you have a physical copy, please feel free to use New South Wales BOSS. If you're using the online version and you use New South Wales BOSS and you're actually using the online copy, the digital one, it doesn't really matter too much. I'm not going to be that picky about it. Just, it's got to be one or the other. Okay, it's not BOSTES for the history syllabus, because that is only applicable to geography. So the first assignment information is now opened. I've completed the videos. I did a combined video. I try to split it up a little bit because it's a little bit different, remembering that 223 is a 200 level and 379 is a 300 level. So there is a difference in word count, except that 223 also has a quiz that they have to do in addition to the first assignment. So it's a little bit different in that way. But overall, the expectations for the assignment are pretty much the same, other than the word count. If you're confused by anything in the video and you have more questions, please feel free to ask me. I went through all parts of the assignment and the expectation for each of those parts, and also some things not to do that I've seen students do in the past. You'll have the weekly overview video every week. That won't change. I'm also going to add a couple more videos. So in the tutorials online, we did some concept mapping about, you know, what HSI subjects are all about, same as what was asked on the discussion board, and also what the society and environment curriculum is all about. So I'll put that sort of really quick TikTok style video up for you to have a look at. You can just click on it and watch it and see what other people put. It is a little bit blurry, but I think that's because I was speeding it up, so you wouldn't have to watch so much of it. It probably took about 10 to 15 minutes for us to do, so you don't really want to watch that long. So I've just scrunched it. And I'll probably put an on-campus tour video for those of you who are studying out of Armidale. You can see a little bit about what the campus is like. All right, I think that's it for me. So enjoy your learning for this week. We will be in touch. I'm looking forward to continuing the learning in these really great subjects and talking about guided discovery, which is inquiry learning. All right, bye everyone.